Look at these beautiful tomatoes put in, and look at the corn downslope. Now, I didn't have a lot to do with this because other volunteers and staff here at the Sustainable Homestead Institute put these in, but they are looking incredible. By the way, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead, where I help with helping you get your small farm homestead or estate off the ground. I volunteer at this location. It is a nonprofit, and I'm just amazed by how much progress they're making. Now you can see some wheat down at the bottom here, some grains down at the bottom here. You can see corn. You can see the tomatoes that they just got put in. They were afraid they were going to get, that the heat was going to kill them, but we managed to get some good rains in place. And I do notice a bunch of daikon radishes that they pulled up when they weed it that I'll probably forage out. But they went ahead and tilled between the rows just to get that grass killed out because it was getting pretty thick pretty quick. That's how much things grow around here. And then I was talking to them, they're either going to put down some mulch or they're just going to put all of their weeds get pulled out into the beds because they don't want the grass to compete with the tomatoes that are already starting to put on some small tomatoes. So it's been some weird weather, but everything's growing on. Here's some more grains. This is about ready to harvest. We're going to have a harvest day, cut this with the scythe, and then use the thresher to separate those grains from the stalks. But look at the bees and the little bit of wildflowers popping up through there. Look at that thing. That is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then we've got this grass edge here. This isn't really clean enough to harvest. There might be some sheaths to harvest out of here, but pretty much this is going to get all chopped, used as mulch, which we'll see on the other side there. But it's working kind of as a microclimate, as some biomass production. And over here, of course, is like some grains. We're using every possible space and ultimately growing quite a bit on. But again, look at the bees going crazy. Got a lot of flowers in my sinuses are going a little crazy over here. And so there's different kinds of grasses. Probably start on this side. Look at all of the rapeseed or the daikon radish that's gone to seed. The bees are going crazy in there. And then there's watermelon just gone in, and onions and peppers and all kinds of other plants here in this market garden. More tomatoes. And then look at over here. Here's all the brassicas and such coming along. It's about end of season for all that stuff. There's a little bit of everything. Some of the lettuce is bolting. It's my understanding folks have been harvesting out of this garden quite a bit of veg. These are cabbages, but it's really at the end of the season. So some things are bolting. Broccoli, and I harvested quite a bit out of here. I chopped and dropped all of the, some kind of brassica there that went to seed. And then some of this other stuff will get harvested out. Of course, the leaves are edible, and then probably chop and dropped as it gets too hot. But look at this, more onions. See how fast the grass grows in the rows in between? All that gets string trimmed out and used as mulch. You can see the straw and stuff here. Having a little problem with some potato bugs, which we could probably reduce by scything out all of this material here, which they were working on earlier, to scythe it out and use it as mulch. And of course, over here, look at this. More brassicas, finishing up the season. As we move across the top here for the onions. The onions were doing quite well, and they've got quite a bit of the grass growing up between them, which is fine. We want ground cover, and we've got, I've noticed in a lot of these daikon radishes are definitely beyond season, and they're getting a little woody. Some of them are getting a little rotten, but I'll eat them in soup. Anyway, so you can see how the biomass gets chopped down and used as mulch. I cleaned up that bed over there. I thought it was overgrown, but there's actually a lot of onions in it. So I cleaned that one up a bit. But we're growing as much biomass as possible. We've got combinations of flowers, common vegetables, and different things. These beds up here are ready to get flail mowed. And here's some of the forage I've done today. So we've got onions, a little bit of amaranth, lots of spinach, broccoli, some cabbages. And I'm only going to take what I'm using. But again, so things like this lettuce is getting out of season because it's been super hot lately. And so what happens, like before, is the beds get we let the beds get overgrown, and then before they go to seed, we either flail mow it or scythe it. If we scythe it, we then put those materials around other beds. In the case where it's grass that's going to seed, we try to just cut that and throw it in the paths and chop it up with a mower. But over time, as we get more and more chop and drop, more and more biomass on the beds, you can see what's been done here. It is going to keep protecting that soil and choke out those weeds, and then allow us to get more growing and less weeding, because nobody really likes to do weeding. In fact, weeding is not necessary if you process these cycles correctly. So if we keep chopping the clover and the grasses off the hill here, try to get them before they go to seed, and then we get these materials, they dry out in the sun for a little bit. Look at these materials. It goes great as a mulch around the plants, or just to mat out idle beds. So any of these beds that are idle, they're not doing anything, you can just chop and drop material. Layers and layers of material will then start decomposing in the soil and start building up that carbon in the soil. Remember, we started this with that good old Virginia clay. And so growing all this biomass on it and then chopping the biomass and layering it on the ground is what starts building up our soil organic matter. Otherwise, we have that clay that you can see on the edge there. It gets super hard, and it gets pretty rough to grow on. So if we grow, that's actually a sunflower right there. So if we grow on these hills and we keep cutting the hills, these are called vegetative strips. That vegetation can go on the paths, it can go on the beds, and then we get to the point where we end up with a no-till. Now we still have mounded beds and stuff in here because, again, this is a new terrace. Make sure you go back to the other video. I'll try to put a link in the description to see this terrace being constructed. So we went from raised beds on a hill where they're all stepped in, and they're all kind of, it's a little bit difficult to work with because there's all these different levels in the hill. We went to this big, wide, open terrace that can be more easily tilled out, but we use a shallow tillage just to break up the surface and kill off any of the cover crops that are on it. And then we come in here and either broad fork it or otherwise mound the material to plant in these plants. And now the plants are just rocking and rolling. It's about the end of season. And I guess the last thing I should show you, see, this was cut earlier and just the material's just thrown in the path. And just, building up the soil. I guess the last thing to show you is I'll walk this here where they string trim really, really short the paths, and now we end up with these nice little grass walking paths. Now, a lot of people will till in between beds, and we show you that in a different area. That's great. Mechanical tillage can clean these paths up, but again, we want to layer the materials. We want to have this straw. We want to have these layers. But we also want to get all this stuff before it goes to seed, because there's still a giant seed bank here that is causing the grass to keep coming back. When we know what it is, like the wheats and stuff, we can let it grow much longer. Oh, I see a daikon radish over there. And some people will pull the daikon radishes out and throw them to the side because they're not sure what to do with them. But the daikon radish is edible, and it's great biomass, so it can be used as mulch. And so we're doing a little bit of everything here. You can see some of the cuttings and clippings and stuff just laid under the plants. We're doing a lot of different stuff here. So I hope you're enjoying this. I keep bringing you updates. I've been a little neglected coming out here because I've been working on some other projects that you've seen on the channel. But there's a lot to harvest here, and it's going to get harvested up, eaten, and then we'll start getting into new crops. We'll start from the top of the hill, cleaning those spaces up in order to get the next crops in. And just like this area over here that I showed you, it'll get cleaned up. New crop will come in. Now there's nothing's getting watered out here, by the way. All the contour paths are how the watering works. There are hoses and the initial plants get watered. But like this area up here, this is finished for the season. So now this area can get flail mowed. And then we'll either till it, do a shallow tillage to terminate the crop. Might broad fork it, depending on what's going on. But we then get that next crop in. Same thing with the other side over here. The onions will continue to maturity. And that's it. It's just the cycles over and over and over. We build up an abundance in the soil, the nutrients in the soil. We bring up minerals from underground. We harvest the plants as we go. And, you know, enjoy lots of bounty here, lots of wonderful plants, vegetables. And this becomes a perpetual or permaculture growing space. I want to thank you for watching. Comment below. Let me hear about your garden. I didn't even cover the zucchinis that are already in there. Oh, and I didn't cover the other corn. It's not, oh my gosh, you'll just have to watch the next video. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead over here, just catching up with what's going on this particular garden. If you have questions about what we're doing here, if you want hands-on classes to learn about it, if you want to see the abundance that's growing on here, there's a link in the description. And you can visit us at www.prosperityhomestead.org, and I will refer you to what's growing on over here. Well, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next podcast.